Hello pilots and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator here on the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the latest release of DLSS 4.0 in both 2020 and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. We're going to walk through the steps of how to configure it, how to set it up. We're going to see some before and after performance and see if it's really worth it and worth the hype. Stick around. If you are interested in any of my tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future guides that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly. Overkill simulations, a thrill will never die.
All right, folks, as I said, today we are going to be checking out the latest release of DLSS 4.0, and we're going to be taking a look at it in both 2020 and 2024. Now, currently, let's talk about the testing parameters as they are set. Right now, we do have DLSS 4.0 installed, but it is from 4.0 from the initial release video that we did a week ago after Island Sim Pilot launched his. So it is not the official release that Nvidia put out just recently with the latest Nvidia driver. So it does need to be updated, and there are some steps that we can change to actually improve it theoretically. So what we're doing here is we are in the Baron G58 over Los Angeles, California with the G1000 in 2560 by 1440 with ultra graphic settings minus motion blur. I hate motion blur. With the glass cockpit refresh rate also set to high. Now, the other things you need to be aware of is I am recording. There will be a little bit of a frame rate hit, but as you can see on the counter, not much to talk about. We are also in 1440 on a 1440 monitor, so that part's good, but we are downscaled to 2560 versus the 5120 that the super ultra wide monitor plays into. Again, minimal impact. I'm just throwing all the variables out just in case they come up. Hardware, it is listed down in the description below, but just a quick recap, we are running the RTX 4080 with the AMD 7900 X3D, 64 gigs of RAM, 6000. Okay, on an M.2 SSD or NVMe hard drive as our storage source. So about as fast performance as you can really get out of the game or out of the sim. And game, I meant just the game. Anyway, so we're going to be doing the same tests in both simulators. Now, I believe both simulators, and we'll check this in DLSS Swapper in just a minute, are running the latest version of, or the first version, not latest, the first version of DLSS 4.0. Now, we're going to be going through a couple of different settings. It sounds like there's quite a bit more that needs to be done than what you would think in order to get DLSS 4.0 to actually work, which makes me wonder if it was ever actually working. By the way, on top of DLSS 4.0, quote unquote, we are also set to quality, and frame gen is turned on. Remember, frame generation is restricted to only 40 and 50 series cards moving forward. If you're on below that, frame gen can be done, but it requires other hacks, so it can't be done defaultly. So all right, so now here we are in Flight Simulator 2024, same conditions, same configuration. Ugh, same crappy flying. Same crappy flying. Let's see what we're getting here. This is really weird on Xbox controller. How do some of you guys do this? Like, and that's not a shot at you. I'm being very genuine. Like, I can't. Man. But let's see what we're getting here. So, obviously, the picture looks significantly better. About 70 frames per second in the bank. Now, you're always going to get a little bit better frame rate in a turn, so be cautious of that. Because you're going to generate the sky on one side, and you're going to generate the terrain on the other, so that's going to cut a lot of that load in half. Because obviously, the terrain is always, it doesn't matter what game you're playing, what simulator you're playing, doesn't matter what it is. The scenery is always going to be your biggest impact, right? So let's roll it out. Let's see what we get more or less in level flight. Saw a little bit of weird artifacting. I don't know if you guys saw that over on the right there as we came out of that turn. Let's try that again. Yeah, a little bit. There it is. So the other thing to remember, there is a concern going around, I should say, that DLSS 4.0 may have never actually been active, at least in its full capability, based on certain settings as well. So we're going to test that out as well. We're going to go through all the steps to properly activate DLSS 4.0 with frame generation on an RTX 40 and 80 series card. If you do not have a RTX 40, 80, and 50, series cards, you still want to watch this. It's not that you still won't benefit from 4.0. You just don't get the frame gen. But let's see here. Pretty steady, I would say pretty comparable performance, at least in this particular aircraft. So there's 2024. So now let's get into our settings video portion of the video and make sure that we have everything configured correctly. And then we will retest. But you guys see what the performance is that we're getting here. All right, pilots, so let's start getting into this. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you want to make sure you have the Nvidia app installed. This is not GeForce Experience. Do not mistake the two. They are two separate things. GeForce Experience has been deprecated, okay? So it's not really effectively used anymore. It can still be used to update drivers and things, but it's just not as effective for what Nvidia is trying to do with it now and for this particular process, so that's critical, okay? So the first thing that you want to do is go to Nvidia site if you do not have it and download. And you can honestly just go to Google and look for Nvidia app download and it pops right up. Okay. And I'll try to remember to put a link in the description as well. So then once you have the app, you're going to go to settings and the about tab, and you're going to make sure that you're on 11.0.2.312 or later. Okay. The higher the number means you're on a later version, but as of the date of recording this video, this is the latest. The next thing you want to do is go to your driver section, and you want to make sure that you are on version 572.16. You can see this was released on January the 30th of 2025. Okay. So, again, if you're on a later version, that's great. That's just, this is the minimum version you must be on at the date of this recording. All right. So now that those two steps are out of the way, let's move on to the next one. Next up, and again, I will have a link to this down in the description below, but again, same principle. You can also go to Google DLSS Swapper download. So you want to make sure you have DLSS Swapper downloaded and installed. Okay. Once we do that, we're going to go to our library and we're going to make sure we have the latest version of DLSS, which is in this case 310.21. Now there's a caveat to this part, so pay attention closely. If you are on a 30 series or below, okay, so you 30, 20, 10, etc., you want to use this one here, just DLSS. If you are on a 40 series, you want to come down and look at DLSS frame generation. Next, we're going to come up here and we're going to go to our games. Now, DLSS Swapper has changed a little bit, which is really, really nice. So focus with me. You can see we have DLSS 3.10. So actually, I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm glad I caught this because I want you guys to see it too in case you run into it. I am also going to come up here and grab the regular DLSS. So I'm going to hit download again. Now I'm going to go back to my games. Click on Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is 2020. This one is 2024. And you can see we were already using the first version. But we're going to select here. Okay. And it says reset your DLL to its original. Nope, we don't want to do that. But we do want to select 310.2.1 swap. We're going to close. You can see that has updated. Let's do the same thing with 2024. And since I'm here, I'm also going to update it for Farming Simulator. And it does not support frame gen if memory serves. Everything else we'll leave as is for now. I haven't touched any of that stuff in a while. All right. That should be it for DLSS Swapper. Let's move to the next step. Okay, now we need to return to the Nvidia app. So I'm going to right click on my taskbar, right click on the Nvidia icon, select Nvidia app. Here it is. We're now going to go to the graphics settings. And we're going to find first Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. We're going to scroll down. Okay, pilots. So before we get to this next section, if you find yourself selecting Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 or 2024, vice versa, 2020, 2024, and you come down here and you see DLSS model presets and frame generation showing as unsupported, that is wrong. So what you need to do is two things. First thing you're going to do is you're going to select your sim and hit restore. What this will do is restore the sim settings to all of the driver default settings. It's not going to change all of your graphics settings within inside the sim. This changes the way the drivers operate on your sim back to the default settings. And that's only if you've gone into the Nvidia control panel at some point and changed them. You can still try that regardless. But for me, that step didn't work, but I want you guys to follow what I did step by step in case you get different results. So I hit restore, same thing, was still getting this error, unsupported, which isn't true. We know that it supports frame generation, for example. So what I ended up doing is my Nvidia app was already installed before 4.0. So I uninstalled it, restarted my computer, reinstalled the Nvidia app, I launched it. It still showed as unsupported. I closed it, launched the app again, and then it showed what it should show. And so now, if you're at that point, you're good to go. So now what to do next, let me close that screenshot, is we're going to, with our sim selected, in this case 2024, we're going to come here. You can see DLSS override model presets. We're going to select the latest, and you should hit apply. Now, there are multiple people reporting on YouTube as well as in forums that that is not actually changing the driver default. So I'm going to show you guys, if you feel comfortable, how to go into the registry and enable a setting that will allow you to see what version of DLSS the sim is using. So stay tuned for that. Okay. So for this next portion, I have done a few videos in the past on how to get into the registry. So the easiest way is simply click on your start menu. You guys probably aren't going to be able to see this. Nope, you can't. So you click on the start menu, just do exactly as I'm doing. I clicked my start menu and I'm going to start typing reg, R-E-G. And you should see registry editor come right up. You're going to click on registry editor and that will bring up this window here. It's not going to be like this yet. What you need to do to get here is you're going to select first H key local machine, software. You're going to scroll on down to Nvidia Corporation, then to global, the next line down, NGX Core. Then what you're going to do is you're going to right click, new, D-word 32-bit value, and you are going to type in this key exactly as it is here. That is show DLSS indicator, all one word, S, D, and I are capitalized. Then you are going to go down to decimal here and enter the value 1024 and press OK. And that is it. And this is exactly what you should see. Show DLSS indicator, capital S, capital D, capital I. And you should see over here 1024. Okay, what this will do is it's going to, inside of the sim, it's going to display the current DLSS version being used. And this can be disabled later. Stay around. So we have now updated our DLSS versions using DLSS Swapper. We have now told the Nvidia app and control panel in this case, or the drivers, to use the latest DLSS version. And we have now enabled an indicator within inside of the simulator to tell us what DLSS version is being used. So at this point, we are ready to start the sim. We are going to start with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. All right, so now with inside of the simulator, you can't really see it because the stupid escape button is sitting over it, but it does say DLSS version 310.21, Nvidia App Override, DirectX 3D12. So, long story short, we're using it. So that's good. Okay, so now we're back in the sim. Now there's going to be quite a bit of regeneration that's probably going to have to take place as well, caching and things like that. However, you can see FPS about the same as what we were seeing before, but what we're more looking at is we're going to be watching clarity of numbers, watching for those artifacts and things like that that we saw again and previously in the turns. So let's actually make it a bit earlier in the day. It's kind of an unfair comparison. And by the way, these changes will work in virtual reality. So getting quite a bit of stuttering, but I warned you guys that there was going to be a lot of caching issues. Oops, wrong button. So that's fair. I'm not upset about that. I'm expecting that. I anticipated that. So the stuttering I'm not concerned with. As we roll out. No more weird artifacting when we came out of the turn. It's extremely smooth. And again, this is on ultra settings. The stuttering again, anticipated. I knew that was going to happen. It's probably some of the best performance I have seen in 2024 yet. FPS didn't change, but we're well above 60 at Ultra on a 4080 at Ultra settings. Oh, I said Ultra. Sorry, guys, I'm getting tired. Been working on my damn car all day long. Blew a water pump in my Challenger. Anyway, which, by the way, I don't recommend. That was not fun. But you can see all the way through, from left to right, the FPS remains very consistent. We don't see any dragging of the artifacts that we saw before. The trailing edges and leading edges of the aircraft are smooth while in motion. I need to bump my shader cache up. It's been a while since I've flown in 2024, so that's part of the problem. Okay, so now let's check out 2020. Alright, so once again, back into Flight Simulator 2020 now, and you guys can see down here at the bottom of the screen, 310.2.1, so that's the latest DLSS 4, which is what we wanted. Do this. And let's release that parking brake. Now on this one, interestingly enough, if you guys take a look at that bottom left corner, that doesn't look as good. Everything looks great except for that window frame. But the speed tape, altitude tape, things that used to be a real pain in the butt with DLSS look fantastic. And I will say, I'm pretty sure 133 frames per second wasn't bad. On ultra settings. Let's verify our settings again, because I'm almost doubting that. Like, holy crap. Did I hit the wrong thing? Yes, I did. Everything should be ultra except... Yeah. Oh, Wrong button. Didn't mean to do that. So I'd say 130 frames per second was definitely an increase. Because I'm pretty sure we were getting, what, 90 or something like that? Well, there it is. So it's bouncing around a bit. That's probably... Oh, you know what it was? We were pointing at the water. That makes more sense. Disregard. It's still nice. And it does look like we still got a little bit of a frame rate boost. And still some of the best frames per second that I've ever seen in Microsoft Flight Simulator. But that's been since the initial release of DLSS. Oh, crap. We are overspeeding the aircraft. This whole flying with the Xbox controller takes a whole different kind of skill. So, certain things, still a little goofy, but... Nope, that's not an artifact, it's the trails. Okay. The only thing that I can see so far is just that window frame. That everything about that window looks horrible. But everything outside of that is pretty damn good and extremely smooth. Very good performance. And we verified that we're actually using it this time. So, alright, so the last thing I'm going to show you guys is how to turn off all of this wonderful pieces of information, which is very, very simple. Alright, you guys. So, to get rid of it, you literally come back in here. Here's our directory again. Right click, delete. That's all you have to do. Okay? And just remember, everything with the registry, guys, be very, very careful. Be very, very slow. Be very, very methodical about what you do in the registry. Okay? The registry is not this big, scary monster that a lot of people make it out to be, as long as you pay attention. Take it slow. Make sure that you match up your directories. But that's all. But anyways, that is going to wrap it up for this particular video, guys. I hope that you guys found this information useful. Really cool tools in there. And some pretty significant performance increases. I'm pretty impressed. We're going to be testing this later on in the week with the Pimax crystal and see how the performance changes with inside of virtual reality as well, and see what kind of gains we get. And then later on, if you guys are interested, make sure that you guys follow my other channel down below. That's Overkill Simulation, or excuse me, Overkill Entertainment 8 at the end. I had to. And we'll be doing DCS later, and I'll show you guys how to implement DLSS 4.0 in DCS World as well. So stick around for that.